Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 39 in our legendary new and improved Arduino tutorials. And what we are going to learn today is we are going to learn how to control a DC motor with a joystick where we control both speed and direction from the joystick. If you remember, that was your homework assignment from lesson number 38. Hopefully you did it on your own. But if you struggled with it, you can follow along with me. Love to hear comments down below. Were you able to do this by yourself? Did you do it the way I did it? Did you do it a different way? You know, let's get a dialogue going about different ways of looking at this. But I will kind of give you a simple and straightforward way to do it, and then we can all do it together. So I need you to pour yourself a nice, huge mug of iced coffee. That would be strong black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweetener, none needed. This is delicious and refreshing and actually probably pretty good for you. I need you to get out your eLego Super Starter Kit for the Arduino. What? You don't have one? Check the description down below. There's a link. You can pick it up on Amazon for $35. It does help a little if we're using identical hardware. Okay, I should tell you that this lesson is a follow-on, really. In lesson number 37, we showed you just how to hook. Let me move over here to what we are looking at and get out of your way. In lesson number 37, we showed you how to hook the Arduino up to a power supply and up to a motor controller, and then up to the motor. And in this case, we are controlling speed and direction just from the code. So we can program the speed that we want, we can program the direction that we want, and by changing the program, we can get the motor to do what we want. If you have not done this yet, you need to go back to lesson number 37 because that will give you the hookup diagram and the schematic, and it will also give you the code that we are starting with. You can do that on the most excellent TopTechBoy website, and I think I can show it here. TopTechBoy.com website. Let's see, we want to, okay, this is it, TopTechBoy.com, and you want to search for Arduino Tutorial 37, and that will have a video on how to do it. It also has our schematic. We always mention that one thing that's not showing here, you want to run a ground wire from the Arduino ground over to this ground rail here so that all the grounds are hooked together. That wire was not shown in that diagram, but we explained it in the video. And then here is the code that we are starting with. You can click on that code, and then you can copy it, and then you can open up your Arduino IDE, and you can paste that in, and then you will be starting in the same place that we are starting. I will get a better code view here. Let's see what is a good code view. This is a good code view. Okay, now you can see my code and you can see the project and I think we are ready to go. All right, so now this is the assignment that we have. We want to take this joystick and we want to connect it into the Arduino. When the joystick is in the neutral position, just up and down, we want the motor to be stopped. As we move forward with the joystick, we want the motor to begin to move in the forward direction, and the further we press it forward, the faster we want it to go. As it comes back to the neutral position, it will go slower and slower and slower until it stops. Then we want to do the opposite in the reverse direction. As we pull backwards, we want it to begin to go slowly in the reverse direction, faster, 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 until when it's all the way back, then we're going full speed reverse. And so the joystick is controlling both speed and direction of the project. Now the key thing is that you can imagine there's math, and there's no way that you can do this really very well without doing the math, and so we're going to have to go through the math. But in order to do the math, there's a number that's very important, and that is, what does the potentiometer read when it is in this neutral up position? Now we know at one extreme it's going to be 0, and at the other extreme it's going to be 1023, and we would expect it to be around 512 in this up direction. But we need to verify that because the math is going to depend on that, and you need to do the math based on your joystick, not mine. So repeat what I'm doing here and then just go through the math for what yours is. So the first thing that we will want to do is hook this up. We will come back over to this view, and so let's get this out of the way. I'm going to hook the joystick up. I don't need all of them because I'm just going to use the Y value, and then also have your little ribbon cable from the Arduino kit. And the outside wire on mine is black, and so I'm going to hook black to GND on the joystick. You see that GND? We're going to hook black to GND, and then we're going to hook the next wire, which is white, to 5 volts, and then I'm going to use the purple wire, and I'm going to connect the purple wire to the VRY, because we're only going to be using the Y value on the joystick. So there, right? So purple to VRY, black to ground, and white to 5 volts. Now I need to hook that up, the other side up to the Arduino. Well, the black was ground, and so I need to come over to GND on the Arduino. I have an available ground there. And then I need to put the white to 5 volts on the Arduino. As such, I keep hitting the fan with my finger. Okay, so let's see where we are. Black wire. I'm going to turn this over to do it a little better. Still, it will still be the same, but just get them going the same direction. Okay, so the white wire will go to 5 volts. You got to kind of fight with these wires. They're stiff a little bit. So white will go to 5 volts, and black will go to GND on the Arduino. Now I'll try to show you. White to 5 volts, black to GND. And now remember, the purple wire is that Y value, and that purple wire I'm going to bring to A1, the analog read pin 1. So now I have the joystick plugged in. So now we need to see what, okay, now we need to see what it reads in the neutral position. I'm sure that you guys are out there screaming for me to turn the motor off, but I want to leave it all plugged in. Okay, so now let's see if we can go back to the code view, and let's see if we can get this thing coded. All right, so what did we do? We added a joystick. So we connected it in, so what are we going to need? We're going to need an int, and we're going to need a J pin. Where did we hook the joystick up to? We hooked it up to pin capital A1, the analog pin 1. All right, the analog pin 1 was the purple wire that goes to the Y on the joystick. All right, if we're going to have a J pin, we're going to need to read a J val. So int J val, we don't put a value in there to begin with because we will read that from the joystick. Then when we come down, we are doing a pin mode for the speed pin, which makes sense. Pin mode for those 2 pins that control the motor direction, dir1 and dir2, hooked up in the lesson number 37 using this. You can see that the dir1 and dir2, the 2 direction pins, were 3 and 4. And so that will continue to work in this. Again, lesson 37 explained all that to you. And so when we look at our pin modes from our earlier work, we're setting the speed pin to an output and then dir1 and dir2 to output. what we need to have is now pin mode, and we need to have J pin, and that needs to be an input like that. Let me make sure that's what we did. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then down here in this code, remember in lesson 27 we were seeing if we could kind of kickstart it with a little bit higher value. We're going to take that kickstart out because that was just playing around, and we're going to take this delay out. And so we have our basic motor control commands here, that if dir1 is low and dir2 is high, it runs forward, and then if we switch them, it runs backwards. And then we have to do an analog write to our speed pin to tell the motor how fast to run. So these are our core commands to run the motor. But now what we really want to do right now is we want to find out what that neutral position is on the joystick. So we're going to say jval is equal to analog read of jpin, and then we're going to need to print that serial.println, and we're going to print jval. So we need to see what that value is if we're going to be able to do our math. And so let's download this. Okay, looking good. Let's call up our serial monitor. Let's see if I have a view that will show the serial monitor, hopefully. Okay, not getting it there. All right. Okay, you can see it here, and what you can see is that it is reading 512. And so that looks good, that looks encouraging, that we are reading 512 off of that. And so what that is saying is that when the joystick is in this neutral center position, it's at 512, and then it'll go from there to 0, and it will go from there to 1023. And so based on that, we need to do all of our math. Okay, so let me move this out of the way here. And we need to go in and we need to get our math done. Okay, so in doing the math, this is really what you guys need to learn. You need to learn how to take the words and the concepts, and you need to draw a picture, and then from that picture you need to be able to figure out how to from that picture you need to be able to figure out how you are going to write your equations. And so let's just think of a set of axes. These things usually start with a graph, and so let me draw a graph. And the idea is you want to take a number that you read and you want to turn it into a number that you write. And you do that mapping in such a way that the project does what you want it to do, or what you were assigned for it to do. And so what are we going to be reading? We are going to be reading jval, right? Jval. And that's going to go between 0 and where? 1023. Okay, so this is 1023 and this is 0. Also, there was that kind of magic number in the middle. What was that magic number in the middle? That magic number in the middle, the neutral position, was here, and this was at 512. This was an x value of 512. Well, what do we know? If the joystick is at that neutral position of 512, what do we want that to read? We want it to read 0. So what we have here is we have a point. That is the point. Jval is 512, and then our motor speed is going to be 0. So we're going to label this m speed. So when the joystick is in the middle at 512, jval is 512, we want an m speed of 0. Now, if you pull that all the way back and you're reading 1023 now on jval, what do you want for m speed? M speed, you want full speed, and that is going to be what? What is full speed? That is 255. So what is this point? If I read 1023, I want to write a m speed of 255. Now this is in this direction where we're pulling back. We're pulling back and we're going from 512 to 1023. Now if we push forward, we are going to go from 512 to 0. Well, at 0, what do I want to do? I want to go 255 also, because that's going to be full speed. Now what's going to be different? This is going to be backwards, so we will have to deal with that. Okay, so if JVal is less than 512, I want to do this, and I want to do it in the negative direction. If JVal is greater than 512, I want to do this, and I want to do it in the positive direction. So you can see right off the bat that your code is going to have an if statement, right? Your code is going to have an if statement, and it's going to look something like this. We're going to say if JVal is less than 512, we're going to do these things, and then if JVal is greater than or equal to, because we need it defined for the 512 somewhere. I could have put the equal here or the equal here, but we want to make sure every case is taken care of. 512, I'm going to do these things. Well, what do I need to do? I need to set the direction. I need to set the direction. Well, in this case, what were our two values that control direction, right? There was dir1 and there was dir2. Well, we want to make dir1 go high and we want to make dir2 go low. And then if we want to go in the opposite direction, we would set dir1 low and we would set dir2 high. Okay, if you do not understand this, go back and watch lesson number 37 because we explained all that there. So that is taking care of the direction. Now we need to find the speed. Okay, and that is finding the equation of this line. Well, I've got the point 512, 0. I've got the point 1023, 255. I can come up with an equation for this line. I also have another line, 512, and then this would be the point JVal is 0, and I want to write 255. Okay? So now I've got to come up with the equation. I've got to come up with two equations. I've got to come up with two equations for a line, the one on the left and the one on the right. Let's start with the one on the left. What do I know? M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? Now if I can call this point 2 and this 1, or I can call this 2 and this 1. It doesn't matter. You just need to do it consistently as you do the slope. And so let's say that this is 255 minus 0 over 0 minus 512. And so that would be y2 is 255 minus y1, which is 0, over 0 minus 512. And then that is going to be equal to minus 255 over 512. And so that's the slope of the first line. Okay, let's find the slope of the second line. Okay, and so this is going to be M2 is going to be 0 minus 255 over 512 minus 1023. So we call this y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then what do we get? Well, I'm going to round 512 minus 1023 is 511, but I'm going to round it to 512, and that way I just get, it's just off by a fraction of a percent, but I get the same slope in the positive direction. So this would be minus 255, and I'll put this is approximately equal to 512 minus 1023. We'll say minus 512, and therefore M2 is going to be equal to 255 over 512. Okay, does this make intuitive sense that these two lines have the same slope but just opposite sign? Okay, now we need to do the equation for the line. What do we know? We know y minus y1 is equal to m onto x minus x1. Don't forget the parentheses, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my x1, y1. X1, y1. So this is going to be y minus 255 is equal to m. What is m minus 255 over 512? Minus 255 over 512 times parentheses x minus x1 is 0. Do you see how I kind of try to pick points? You can pick either point in doing these things, but you pick the one that makes it a little bit easier. So now I have y minus 255 is equal to minus 255 over 512 times x. Now I need to move the 255 over, and I'm going to have y is equal to minus 255 over 512 times x, and now I move that over plus 255. I add 255 to both sides. Okay, so what this means is I have an equation, and for any j-val between 512 and 0, I can calculate the m speed because I have the equation of this line. In fact, let me write it up here. That is y is equal to minus 255 over 512 times x plus 255. So now I've solved half of the problem. Now I've got to do the same thing for the other side. I have the slope, and so now I'm going to say y minus y1. Well, I'm going to use this point, 512 and 0, so y minus 0 is equal to, y minus 0 is equal to m, in this case, 255 over 512 times x minus x1. And what is x1? It's 512. Okay? So, now what do I get? Y is equal to 255 over 512 times x, and then minus 255 over 512 times 512 is just 255. Okay, do you see these equations are almost the same? Because they're really just reflecting across reflecting across that center dotted line. So now I can write this equation up here. In this region, I would use the equation y is equal to 255 over 512 times x minus 255. Okay, so now I have the math done on both sides of the equation. All right, I have the math done for both moving the joystick forward, which is this one, and then moving the joystick back, which is this one. So now we need to come over and we need to see if we can start coding this thing up. All right, so let me get this as best I can. These wires begin to be very hard to manage. And I'm going to need to get a little better view. Let's see, you need to see a good coding window here. All right. The good thing is we already did a little bit of the coding. We did a little bit of the coding already. Trying to get this where you can see everything. So we are going to look here. So we've got the speed pin, which is the pin that controls the speed of the motor. Again, lesson 37, we've got our dir pins that control the direction. And then we have M speed, which is going to be this thing that we're calculating. Now, we just, for the demonstration, set it to 90, but now we will be using these equations to calculate M speed. So I'm not going to set that at 90. We will calculate what that should be. So let's think of what we want to do. Well, we still want to do these same pin modes, and then we still want to do our analog read. And then really to control the motor, there's 3 lines. You've got to set dir 1 and dir 2 low, high, or high, low, and that sets the direction. And then you've got to write the write to speed pin the motor speed. But it's going to depend on where we are. So if JVal is less than what? If it's less than 512, what do we do? Well, we're going to set the direction. And so I will come here and I will just copy these. Again, this was all lesson 37. That shows you, that sets the direction in the forward direction. Okay. And now what do I need to do? And again, we are for less than 512. We are here, so we use this equation. So now I'm going to calculate M speed based on that equation that we just did, and that was equal to minus 255 point, don't forget your point in there or it won't work, 255 divided by 512 point, and then times what? Well, times JVal, because we're taking JVal and we're turning it into M speed. And then what we do is we add 255 point. And that was just this equation that we just derived on the left. Now, what do we do with that? Well, we now need to analog write to where? Speed pin. That's where the speed pin is connected to. And then we write the M speed that we just calculated. And don't forget your semicolon up here. All right, so that's the case for when JVal is less than 512. The other case would be if JVal is greater than 512. So if we say if JVal, and you never want to say greater than 512 and less than 512. You got to tell it what to do at 512. So either the first if or the second if needs to have an equal. So we'll just put it on the second one. So if JVal is greater than or equal to 512, then what do we do? Well, we do the other equation. Okay, we do the equation on the right that we found. But what we also need to do is we need to first set the direction. And this needs another closed here. Okay, we need to set the direction. So in the other way it was low, high. So to change the direction we need to make this high. And we need to make this low. And then still we're going to write analog write speed pin. But now we got to calculate, we have to calculate that M speed. And in this case, M speed, writing it right, M speed is going to be equal to, and we said it's 255 point divided by 512 point. Remember on that side it was a positive slope, and then times x. Well, what is our x value? Our x value is JVal, okay, and then we subtract 255 point. All right, this looks pretty good, and so let's put this in and let's see what happens. I need everyone to hold their breath. Okay, it downloaded, but now the question is, what is going to happen when we try to run this with the joystick? Let me go back to full speed. Let me go back to full screen here. Okay, so you see this. We had it set up like this. And so what I need, as I gradually move this forward, I need it to start running slowly at first and then faster and faster as I move the joystick forward. So I'm beginning to move it forward, and look at that. It's starting and it's running real slow because I'm barely moving it and it's barely running. And now full speed, okay, and then look, stop. And this is going in, for me, it's the counterclockwise direction. Okay, now if I pull it back, look, it's going clockwise slowly, and then full speed. Boom! Do you see this? This is working. I am controlling this with a joystick forward, backwards, and I can control the speed and the forward direction very smoothly. Do you see how slow I can make that go? How slow? Or slowly in the reverse direction. Boom. Okay, guys, you cannot do this without doing the math. The only way that you can make projects like this work is doing the math. And so what I really want you to learn is, I want you to learn how to think about a project. What was it that I told you? I told you the joystick in the neutral position would be off. As you move it forward, it would go faster and faster, backwards faster and faster in the opposite direction. What was the key to making this project work? Okay, the key was drawing this picture that makes a graph out of the words that we talked about. When you make the graph out of the words that we talked about, then you change it from a hard thinking problem into a simple math problem. It also shows you why you need to be able to do the equations of a line. Okay, guys, I would really appreciate hearing from you guys. I would really appreciate getting your feedback and letting me know, were you able to do this project on your own? Did you do it on your own but do it in a different way? If you got hung up, how did you get hung up? Once you saw this lesson, lesson number 39, does it at least make sense how we did this? When you come across problems like this in the future, are you going to be able to do them? Okay, I really hope so. Okay, this is going to be your assignment for next week. Okay, for next week, what I want you to do is I want you to have a motor controller. So you're going to have this same kind of basic circuit. You're going to have the same basic circuit that we had in this lesson, in lesson number 37. But instead of using the joystick, I'm going to want two buttons. Okay, I'm going to want two buttons. And it's going to start in the off position. But then if you press one button, it will start going faster, 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 faster in one direction. Okay, until it reaches full speed. And then when you press the other button, it is going to slow down until it stops. And then it's going to reverse direction until it goes full speed in the reverse direction. So you're going to go from full forward to full backwards. One button should move you towards full forward. The other button should move you towards full back. And so instead of using a joystick, you're going to control this motor with two buttons. Okay, that's your assignment for next week, and then we will take a look at that. You guys, if you like this lesson, give me a thumbs up. I love to hear your comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe, make sure you ring the bell. If you don't touch the bell, you will not get notifications for this channel. And then we will get back together next week and go over this, this latest homework assignment. Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.